This is the Unlock Your Inner Creator series, and I'm your host, Noilyn Mendoza. My intention with this series is to spark conversations with passionate changemakers and creatives that bravely dared to dream of new ways and took massive action. Despite the chaos that's happening around us, a radical and liberated future, a new earth can be realized and is possible if we choose to take brave steps. So I invite you to explore with me what that could look like. Welcome, everybody. We are in our second season of the Unlock Your Inner Creator series. I'm Noilyn Mendoza, soul purpose coach and pranic healer, and I'm super excited to bring you this season. So today is the fall equinox. I can't believe it. This year has just flown by us. And so when I think of the fall, it's a time that represents both equilibrium of day and night. It is the equalness of the light and the darkness in our lives. And so, our summer is officially done. Long summer nights have passed, and now we're in a season of transition as we look outside, and I'm sure that it's going to be happening soon in many parts of the country where it is starting to look different. Our trees are different, our plants are different. And so with that, I really wanted to focus this season on this theme around processing endings and beginnings. And so as we open this conversation, I call on the energy and power of transitions. What does it mean for you to be at the threshold? Because that's where we are right now. Of the old and stepping forth into the new. So I invite you to explore with me what that can look like. And I'm super excited to have our first guest for this season, dear colleague and friend, Alisi Tulua. And she's the project director of the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Data Policy Lab at the UCLA Center for Health Policy Research. Prior to that, she served in various roles all throughout California, advocating and mobilizing Pacific Islander communities. And so I'm so excited to have you here. And I just wanted to open the floor. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm so excited to be part of this journey and just be part of the work that you're doing. It's actually an honor for me to be part of the energy that you bring into the world. So I think the only thing that I would like to add is that I am an immigrant. I am also the daughter of immigrants that moved from Tonga in the Pacific Islands to the United States when I was 13. So I speak Tongan fluently, and continue to live my life as much as I can with those values.
Beautiful. So, my first question for you is, who are the people who have been most influential to you in your life? Who do you want to call in today?
Well, I this is going to sound cliche, but I think my parents are have been the most influential people in my life. They have been the compass and the manual that I refer to anytime I need anything or anytime I feel lost. And not necessarily that I have to call them for their guidance, but I think they did so much teaching in my childhood and in my upbringing that it's like a reference in my head that I dial back to when I need guidance or when I feel lost or um, need encouragement. I just I rewind to specific places in my brain where I can hear their voices and hear the guidance and the things that they taught me growing up. And so that those are, I'm lucky that they're still alive and I continue to hear their voices every day. Having moved home over almost 2 years now, I've moved back home and I live with them and I can hear them in the next room. And so they continue to be the people that I call on in any time of need.
Beautiful. What would you say have been the biggest insights they've given you, Elise?
Oh my gosh, my parents raised so many children. And so I am probably amongst the youngest of the children that they raised. And so I think I got to benefit from them having taught so many others that were older than me. But something that, both of them have their own ways. But my dad, there's this Tongan proverb that he used it. He started a company and he used it in the name of the company. So it's something that I heard all the time. And the Tongan proverb is piki piki hama kai vai vai manava. Um, and I think I've shared this with you in other spaces. This is my power stance.
Mm.
People, they encourage you to find like your power stance, and that proverb is my power stance, and it means let's link our outriggers together so we can share life. So that's something that has always been a key reminder in, especially doing community work, about ways that we prepare ourselves to be able to help, help aid people, but also put ourselves in places where you can rely on others to be a source of life for you. So, that's something that I carry with me from my father. And I think for my mom, she used to always say, "Fai ke lele, bia fai ke a'u," do it well and finish the work. And
Mm.
so that's always been something that I carry with me, about being intentional about just resilience. I think that maybe the word is resilience, but figuring out a way, like figure out a way, find the way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know what I love about both those examples of your parents? The first word that comes into my mind is pathfinder,
Mm, wow.
right? In so many ways, it's like you will make a way, whether it's on the outrigger with
Yes.
other folks, because you're headed in a direction, and also the what you said about your mom, and I just think that that's so poignant. You will make
Hmm.
a way, you will find a way.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm just gonna sit with that for a little bit.
Yes.
Beautiful. Mm. So, earlier I talked that today is the fall, officially fall. And around this time, I always just think about back to school, even though now in California, which I think is crazy, people start school like in early August, and I think some even start like in late
Yeah.
July. I mean,
First week of
when I was going to
August.
school, it was like after Labor Day. So, September is always like back to school, for me. And in some ways, it's kind of like a new year.
Hmm.
It's not January anymore. There's like two New Years. It's the school year and then January. But I think with any new year, we get into this space of I'm gonna just take a step back and I want to reflect
Hmm.
and think about how it's been, and then also how do I want to show up
Yeah.
moving forward. So, I'm curious. We're going into this new year, whether it's
Hmm.
school or not. But I also just feel like as things open up more in different
Yes.
parts of the country, we're coming back, or we're coming back different. What would you say, for you personally, have been the biggest things that you learned about yourself in the last year and a half?
Hmm. Um, I think when we first went into the pandemic, there was this desire to do all the things we need to do so we can get back to normal.
Mm,
Um, and the longer the pandemic wore on, the more I got to sit with, do I want to go? Was normal even good for me? And I
mm-hmm.
think I'm not the only one that's realizing this. I think a lot of people are thinking about this. And so I started to think about, like, how do we reimagine what a new normal could be? Because certainly the normal we were living in was, I mean, even now, I mean, I feel like we're in a period of transition, but
Yes.
the normal that we were in previously was not good, you know? And so if there's an opportunity to reimagine what we want this newness. I'm not even call it a new normal, but the newness to be, it's now is an opportunity to reimagine that. And so what I have really learned in this time is that anything can be imagined and worked on,
Yes.
The kinds of restrictions and criteria and fences we built around ourselves and the ways that we defined things for ourselves do not need to be that way. And there's an opportunity for me to change that. And I think I've been thinking about that so much, and reimagining what this new life will be for me, because I don't want it to be the same as before. And I've been trying to redefine some of those things for myself. How I love, how I express myself, how I spend my time, things like that. So I think that's what I've been learning, because I didn't learn it already. What I'm learning and continuing to learn is like, what are the things that I need to redefine for myself and reimagine for my life.
Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like a lot of people who are listening to this very much resonate with what you just said. For me, what struck me was the last couple of things that you said was, I didn't learn this before, I'm learning it now. And you and I were born the same year, right? So we're like, are we in our mid 40s? I guess we are, right? I guess we're officially in our mid 40s
Yeah,
this year.
yeah.
And so, a lot of things that I hear from folks is it too late to do the thing, whatever that thing is, right? Have I lost my opportunity? Can I reinvent myself? And I feel like, to me, you're one of the examples of somebody who is defying that. And this idea that what came out of these last 20 months for you was, I get to reimagine how I want to be and how my life can be. I just think that that's so inspiring. So I guess with that is, what are you curious about these days? As someone in this transition period or this threshold,
Mm-hmm.
like, what are you curious about right now?
I am curious about what I'm capable of. And so speaking of, being 44 and wondering whether like, is it too late for me to like do something else? I wish somebody told me in my younger age that I was still so young.
Totally, right? You realize that now. And I'm sure that there's probably people who are older than us or be like, y'all are
You're
young.
still right.
There's still time.
Right. And so that's what I'm
Right?
trying to tell myself now. Like my 60-year-old self will probably be like, you were 44. What are you talking about? So I'm trying to live in that same moment of like, well, when I was 32 and I was like, what was I saying when I was 20? Like I was 25 and worried about like my life being over, so um what I've been really curious about is like at 44, like I feel like my life still hasn't started yet. And I feel like there's still so much of myself to live into.
Mm.
And so I'm curious about like what am I capable of right now? Because for a moment there in the old normal, I was like, okay, this is where we are, and we're just gonna make do with this the best we can, which was all right. But
Mm-hmm.
now in this period of reimagining, I'm like, that was fine. But what I've learned is that I misinterpreted some things for my life.
Mm.
And what I thought, I'll give you a real life example. And somehow I am confessing my life right now, but that's okay. This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
Um, but when I came into nonprofit work, I was on a journey to go into a career that I've always wanted to go into. And I went to school for it, and I'm super passionate about it. I love talking about it. And I said, you know what? I need to go learn about my community first so that what I say I will do in my career actually is relevant to my community.
Mm.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to go learn in community first. And I thought, I'll come maybe 2-3 years and learn about, how to work around like people's population health and things
Mm.
like that. I've been in nonprofit work for 15 years. That was 15 years ago that I decided to come into nonprofit to learn, and I was supposed to get back on track to my career. And so when I was 41, so 3 years ago, I decided to mourn that career and say, okay, I need to do something else now because I'm too old at this point. So I had a funeral for my career and mourned it for a whole year. I
Mm.
mourned my career because, it's still something that I desire. But I had to put it aside, I had to be smart. I had to be smart. And I did that. And then only in this past, I would say in 2021, having lived through the pandemic and have lived through the work in community, I realized that what I thought I was supposed to learn in 3 years in order for me to get back into my career path was the entire journey I've been taking so far.
It
Like,
took 15 years.
yes, why did I think I was going to learn all this in 3 years? And why did I think that what I was going to learn in 3 years was going to be good enough for my community?
Mm.
And what I just realized is that if what I say that I want to live into in my work is that I want to give my community the very best of me, then the 15 years of education in community is what my community deserves of me and what I deserve of my learning. So now I have revived like this pathway back to my career because I feel like I think I'm ready.
Mm.
But if I didn't have this pause and this time to reflect and reimagine, I would have continued to live on and just like moved forward. But I realized I was like, wait, that education was supposed to take 15 years. What was I thinking that, like why did I put a timeline on that learning?
Mm.
I deserved this for myself. My community deserves this of me. So now what I am really curious about right now is like, how can I do this? I want to get back to that career path now. I feel like I'm ready. So that's what I'm really curious about is like, am I capable of this? Like what tools have I learned? What tools do I have now that I wouldn't have had before? And is my 44-year-old brain capable of being able to like learn all the things that's necessary in order for me to get back into that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been really curious
I
about
love it.
lately.
It's like trust the reroute.
Yes.
Because sometimes, especially when you're younger, and I think a little bit of this is society, right? Like there's these benchmarks and these milestones that you're supposed to hit at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't hit it, what is that saying about you? But in some ways, you just got to let it go.
Yeah.
You got to let it go, and you're right on time. You're always right on time. And sometimes it's not your plan, it's a divine plan, it's a
Mm-hmm.
bigger plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. Um, Another thing that struck me, what you said was you took a whole year to mourn. And I would actually say to me, that's incredibly brave. One, that you can use the language mourn, because people don't like to talk about that.
Uh-uh.
We're not comfortable with grief. And grief looks like so many things. It's not just when a loved one transitions from their physical body, but grieving can look like so many things. And your example is like you mourned and grieved of a dream
Yeah.
that you had, and you allowed yourself to do that. I think that's just so powerful. And you know to me it's kind of a rite of passage, this
Mm-hmm.
idea of allowing yourself to recognize this space that you're in. And sometimes it's going to take a year,
Yeah.
sometimes it takes longer, right? So that you can step into something new. And we've had conversations about this. I feel like if you live here in the US, It's like, when was the last rite of passage that you can think of? If you went to college, like graduation, if you got married, maybe that's it. But I think after that, we don't really like honor these new phases or these new seasons of life. In some ways, it harms us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can't get our minds and our hearts and our emotions and anything else right or ready for what's to come. And then, you know, what I love so much about your work and the body of your work, to me, at least, it's like it's really about reclaiming and uplifting and
Mm.
honoring
Yeah.
your ancestors and also honoring all of these teachings. Like, we called on your parents,
Yeah.
right? And you taught me something a few years ago, fanua, and it really stuck with me. Could you explain what fanua is?
Yeah. So Fanua in Tongan is the word for land. And in many other Pacific languages, a derivative of that is it means land. Yeah. But I think I had when I shared it with you, it was in this context of how um, land is so prevalent in the. I'm going to speak to Tongan culture, even though it's very similar with other Pacific Islands. How prominently land plays a role in our, I don't want to say life, in our just like existence, in our being,
Yeah.
because the literally the word fanua means land, but it also is the same word for the placenta when the baby is growing in it, the uterus.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm a biology person. I should know this. Yeah, so it's the same word for the uterus when the baby is growing. It's they call that the baby's fanua. So it's like the first land. Your first land is
Your first
your
home.
yes, yes. And the significance of how after childbirth, that the placenta gets buried back into the land, as a as like giving it back to where it came from. So in traditional Tongan culture, the placenta is usually buried right outside your home, typically close to where the front door is, so that everybody that steps into the house or out of the house steps on that as like part of it, part of the land. So you continue, part of you continues to be part of like everybody's coming in and out of your home. Um,
Mm.
and then also it's the same word for the grave. The grave means fonualoto, right? The land within land. And so when you die, you go back to your fonualoto, which is land within land, which is your grave. So
Wow.
this word is the word fonua is, is part of one's coming to the world and leaving the world, and it's the word for land.
Mm.
So yeah.
I didn't realize that last part because you and I talked about it in the context of the placenta
Mm-hmm.
and the land, but wow, that's incredible because it's
Yeah.
like a full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also our connection with Mother Earth,
Yes, exactly.
that we are part of it both when we're born and when
Mm-hmm.
we die. And then your imagery of you put the fanua in the threshold of where the door is. And so
Yeah.
for me, I was just thinking how poetic that is too, as you're coming and you're going and you're entering and you're leaving,
Yeah.
from your home space to the outside, and vice versa, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you bring in? That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I feel like it's easy to do that back in the islands because traditionally the land, if you're born like that land belongs to you and had belonged to generations before you, because the land just gets passed down
Mm-hmm.
within the family, right? So you imagine how many other placentas had been
That's
part
true.
of that land, and so it's hard. It's harder here because people buy homes and move, and you know most of our population rents homes, and that's land is not theirs. And so there's
Mm.
such a that's that I feel like I'm thinking about how we wonder why there's so much disconnection.
Yeah.
um, there's very intentional practices in our culture that gives you a sense of belonging to something that belonged to your grandparents and your grandparents' grandparents before them. And so you get to be
Mm.
part of the physical land itself too. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a profound concept.
Right. And like and rooting.
Mm-hmm.
And rooting to the place that you are. I I'm having like an aha moment right now as you're talking about that. It's like, is this one of the missing links around
Mm.
transitions?
Hmm.
Because we don't have these ceremonies or these rituals or rites of passage, that we've lost it somehow.
Right.
Especially for those of us, myself and yourself included, whose family don't necessarily trace our origins here. Like, we
Right.
settled on this land,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're settlers on this land.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't even know what the next question is. I'm just like, it's a lot, but it's so poignant to for me to be able to understand what this threshold is and what does that mean,
Mm-hmm.
as you said, as we reimagine what this newness can be.
Yeah, I think you bring up something that I've been also thinking about as settlers on this land. Um, a natural part of our, traditional practices is if you are, we're oral history people, right?
Mhm.
Everything was preserved through storytelling and sharing of histories and things like that. So speeches are a big part of so many of our occasions. You get to practice it from a very young age. But the very, very, the beginning of any traditional, actually, it doesn't even have to be traditional, of any, speech you present has to do you have to do a land acknowledgement, right? So it has become something that is more in practice here in this country, but it has always been part of what we do. And so if you're in another village, you have to do land acknowledgement of that village and that land and the people that land belongs to. So it has not been a new practice for us to be doing this here in this country. But as you're talking about it, I have been thinking a lot about the fact that I'm a settler, and I like to introduce myself as an immigrant, but lately I've been thinking I need to change that and say that I'm a settler.
Mhm.
So I've been kind of like working through that because as we're talking about land and how important that is to my identity as a Pacific Islander, what does it mean as a settler that this land belonged to somebody else? That it's unceded land that belongs to somebody else that I get to be on because somebody stole it.
Mm.
So like, what is my responsibility in acknowledging that? And of course there has to be work to be done beyond acknowledging it. But anyway, I've just been thinking about that
Yeah,
too.
yeah, no, I feel you on that, on so many levels, right? How do we be respectful stewards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes it is hard, right? Like, because we're also from communities that face a lot of obstacles and challenges, but recognizing that there's also another side of it, even
Mm-hmm.
as immigrants
Yes.
here,
Yes.
right? And you bring up this thing around identity, right? And so just back to what we were talking about, transitions and
Mm-hmm.
identity and stepping in to certain things, like, maybe one of the reimagined thing is like you and I both step into, like, we are settlers here, right? What other identities maybe have like taken a backseat and are interested in coming up again and
Hmm.
being at the forefront, or that you are exploring right now in this reimagination phase of newness?
Hmm. Um, I think I had mentioned before that I just moved back to my parents.
Mm,
I had lived on my own and, been doing work on my own and given, I'm divorced and don't have any children, I decided that I wanted to come home and hang out with my parents.
mm,
And I knew that that was going to be something new as an adult to be back, in the same home as my parents. And but I think it's an identity that I am resettling into, is
mm-hmm,
what does it mean to be an adult daughter living at home with my elderly parents. um but and also in my culture, I'm the only daughter. I have five brothers, and I have a certain position in my family as the sister, and so I hold a lot of responsibility, because I have a lot of power as the girl in the family.
mm-hmm,
And so that's another role that I'm coming back into. I left home to go to college, and I was 19 and I didn't have to be so responsible. But now as
mm-hmm,
an adult, my brothers are married and have children, and I have a certain responsibility to them and their children. So that's another role, that I am growing into, is what are the things that I need to know in order for me to properly maintain those relationships
mm-hmm.
and those responsibilities to my brothers and their children, and also as kind of the person that has the last say in the family and makes the decision within my nuclear family. And you know um thankfully my parents are still here, and they get to say, it's what you decide. And then I have to, like, okay, I have to work through my brain. But yeah, those are kind of like new roles that I'm transitioned back home into, is like I have to realize the responsibility I carry, and like actually holding my family
Mm,
together and moving our family forward. And
yeah.
kind of like in a matriarch role and having to make those decisions, and also have the responsibility of like teaching the kids how to continue to have relationships with each other, and their parents are busy working to make sure that they're fine, but I feel it my responsibility to continue to weave their relationships with each other
Mm-hmm.
strongly, and um, create ways for us to continue to pass on the stories and the histories of our family and the values that our parents brought with them, because that easily gets lost with children when they're born and raised here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are kind of the new identities that I have.
Yeah. And very powerful identities.
Yeah.
And part of it is stepping into,
Mhm.
especially your role,
Yeah.
you're getting groomed to be the matriarch, right?
Yeah, most of the time I'm like, well, whatever you all think. If they're like, no, you have to make a decision. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And then being in that space of, I will step in.
Yeah.
And I think back to what you were saying, you just gave me another aha, was what am I capable of?
Yes.
What am I capable of in this role
Hmm.
as well? Yeah. So, you I feel like, yes, the last 2 years has been in transition for everybody, right? But you
Yes.
also have kind of been in transition even a little
Yes.
before that,
Hmm.
in leaving Southern California, going back up
Hmm.
north. You're transitioning in your family role. I mean, even in your professional world too,
Yeah.
it's like kind of
Hmm.
evolving all of the community work that you were doing. So what advice do you have, Alisi, for folks that may not have made a transition into this newness? Maybe they're
Hmm.
still trying to reimagine what that looks like, but what advice do you have for someone that is about to embark on a really big transition? What is something that maybe you wish you would have known when you began?
Yeah. Get a coach. No, just
Joking, but true.
no,
Right.
I'm not joking. I know that's not, I know that like maybe there's something more poetic to share, but honestly, to be completely transparent, like you were my coach when I was going through the transition through a program that I was a part of, right? And I feel like having, because you were coaching me before I even moved
Yeah.
physically. And I was also thinking about, leaving, I was transitioning out of my job and thinking about doing consulting work. I mean, there were a lot of transitions. And I really think that if I didn't have your kind of guidance at that time as my coach, it would have been so much harder. And I just got really lucky that that happened to be the time that I had coaching available to me, was while I was going through that, because it was just a lot. So I don't know. I think a lot of people have been having this conversation about like self-care, mental health, and people have been way more open about like finding a therapist. And who was I listening to somebody yesterday? Oh yeah, I'm listening to this book by Stephen King called On Writing. He's basically kind of a memoir of his like writing life. And he said in there something about he was given a coach, but really like coaches are therapists also. so I mean, I don't know. That's the very practical thing for me, is like find somebody that can be a compass for you while you're going through a transition. And whether that's like a family member, or a friend, most friends and family members are biased, right? Like they're more likely to like hold you together because like they'll be a part of your life forever.
Yeah.
But you find somebody that's a little bit more removed, that has tools external to like a relationship with you, that can be really useful in helping to like give you a little bit of direction when you need it, give you some encouragement when you need it, but also give you some truths that you need to sit with when you need that. That was really, really, really helpful for me in the transition. And I think more personally is to surrender control. Like
Ain't that the
surrender,
truth?
yeah, like surrender control to trusting yourself that this is the time for going through it, right? And I could have easily just said like, just be open, but you can be open and still not like surrender control.
Yeah.
And trust yourself fully to go through the transition. Because if you don't trust yourself enough, I mean, you can't always, you can have doubts and things like that, but if you don't trust yourself enough, then you wouldn't be able to give up, to surrender control to the change that you're going through. And then it'd be hard for you to receive the abundance that comes with going through transition.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, like sometimes the only way through it is through it.
Yes.
You can't say anything else, right?
You just have to. So,
Oh my goodness. But that control piece, sometimes we like psych ourselves, I'm open, right?
yes.
And then there'll be moments that happen. We're like, am I really open? Was I just trying to control that situation right now?
Control your openness.
Control my openness right now. But yeah, I feel like a lot of it is leaning in, doing it, and then stepping back and releasing.
And letting it grow.
And letting it grow. Yeah. And it's like this weird kind of thing that you're constantly navigating and negotiating.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't feel like cotton candy and flowers the whole time.
Absolutely not. I wish it was.
Right. But I feel like that's the part about like surrendering control, is knowing that like this is going to feel hard, but I'm gonna get through it. And there is something there's something along the way, right? Like not on the other side of this, but there are things along the way that you get to be a part of, so
yeah. And all of this is happening for me, not to
yes,
me right now,
yes,
right? It's
for me.
for my growth.
Right.
Absolutely. So, as somebody who I feel like you said, like you've gone through a transition, you're transitioning now. We're all collectively transitioning. How do you stay rooted? How do you stay motivated to just keep going? What have been the resources for you?
Oh man, I would say community have really been that for me. And it's weird to say that because I work in community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's community has been the reminder. So really finding folks that you align with, that your principles are aligned with, that your love for the work is aligned with, that your love for yourselves is aligned with, right? Because they will remind you, you don't need to come to this meeting, take a break. Folks like that to be in community with. And like during this time, I really dove into building these communities virtually, where I've made some really great friends, I would call them, or even just family. So I call that community also. These are new folks that came up because of the pandemic. We created these Zoom groups that met once a week. Those kinds of communities keep me encouraged, right? So one group, for example, is this Pacifica virtual book club that I've been a part of, um, where we read like books and poetry that was written by Pacifica authors. Like those kinds of spaces are so grounding. And I get to be in space, most of them. I'm usually the oldest person in the room, but then I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, look at all this new energy. And I get to learn from the perspectives of people that are like 10 years younger than me and kind of feel the world through their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been part of this group that was started to learn Tongan language. Um, and of course, like I'm able to offer up a lot there because I'm fluent in the language, but also just like learn from young people who were born and raised outside of the islands and feel and see the world through their eyes. Those are the people that keep me grounded, outside of my family. But those kinds of community remind me of why I get to be who I am and why that's an offering to the world even, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what I mean by like I'm grounded by community. That in so many of those spaces, like I find motivation, I find inspiration, I'm reminded, I'm humbled. So it's like find community to belong to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how we started this conversation and you called on your elders, and right now you're calling in those that are younger than you.
Mm.
So it's like a full spectrum of folks. And the other thing, as you were talking, I thought about Grace Lee Boggs, and
Mm.
one of the things that she says is the only way to survive is to take care of each other.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about these virtual communities and what they've been able to offer us in this last year and a half, I would have never thought. I mean, I feel you because I'm in some virtual communities. I have literally never met these people in
Yeah.
person, but I feel so connected on a soul level
Yes.
with them. I feel so seen, I feel so held, and it's just amazing, right? Like, who would have thought?
Not
That would
me.
be, I mean, especially because, back then Zoom was like, this is a really weird meeting. And
Yeah, like
am I going to look at myself? Am I looking at them? What do I
yeah.
do? And it's
Oh
so
my gosh.
uncomfortable, but it's
I
like part of
hate
this.
Zoom meetings. I used to
Right.
I'll just call into like a web conference. But now we live here.
Yeah. Well, we live here now.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. What is here right now for you?
What is here right now for me is building, building. I have, I'm really honored to be in a time in work for my community where I get to be part of building something. So even in my current job, I started this job in January. The NHP Data Policy Lab is brand new, and I get to be part of creating, like, what is this? What are we doing? What do we want to do? How do we serve community in these spaces? And also just outside of my paycheck job, I was like a lot of other community work where it's like, this is possible and we want to move in this direction. How do we get there? So being able to do that kind of building, and it's like imagining, like, let's imagine what we want this to be, knowing what we came from and where we are right now. What are we building? Like, what are building blocks that we need? And I think, like, even personally, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like I'm getting to build a part of me that, like, I had always, like, okay, I went to school for this, my passion is there. And so now I get to, like, build that as a 44-year-old. And so that's where I am right now, is like being excited about, like, building things that I hope are meaningful to the world. So
beautiful. Builder. You're a builder. So Alisi, how can people connect with you?
Well, I spend a lot of time on Instagram.
What's your handle?
Oh my gosh, it is not easy to remember because I intentionally did not want it to be easy to remember. But it is Manava o Moana.
And we'll put it in the description.
Okay. MANAVA.OO.MOANA. I'm sure everybody knows how to spell Moana. Which means, like, oh my gosh. Manava means the core. It's like it means the core, like, and it's like part of the body that is right between your stomach and the diaphragm. I don't know what it is in English.
It's your solar plexus.
Yes.
Yes. Which I think is interesting because when you look at it from an energy level, that is where you hold your personal power.
Oh my gosh. I had never thought of that alignment.
Yeah.
But it's like the core of the ocean, Manava o Moana, which as Pacific Islanders, like, there's so much power and spirit in the ocean. And Moana isn't just like the sea. Moana is like the deepest part of the ocean. And so it's like the core of that. So that's what my Instagram handle.
Core of the deepest part.
Yes, of the ocean. That's what my Instagram handle means. So you can find me there. I'm doing a lot of work in community. I'm really proud right now to be part of the Southern California Pacific Islander COVID response team. So if you're looking to support any of work, and we're a coalition of Southern California Pacific Islander organizations. And that's space that we're trying to build and reimagine and offer up to community. And then I'm also running up and down, like Northern California, supporting a lot of our orgs and connecting resources. And but yeah, all of that kind of converges up to my life on Instagram, which is kind of where I am, I guess, digitally.
And just a plug for you, if you are not following Alisi, please follow her, because she has some of the most beautiful, I don't want to even call them posts, because a lot of them are like these beautiful stories, and you know how to kind of weave this thread. And I'm learning so much just in following her too. So please follow Alisi.
I rage a little bit too, so it's all part of
this
me.
This is part of it, right? This is part of it. Exactly. So we see everything in your wholeness. So my last question for you, just to bring it back to the title of this series, which is unlock your inner creator. Alisi, what does being a creator mean to you?
I was just about to say that I don't see myself as a creator, but I just told you that I'm really in this building phase. So I guess I am a creator.
Yeah.
What does it mean? To me, it means building your soul into something that will exist beyond you. And so it's like pouring into a legacy that you won't see the outcome of it, but like that's not what you do it for. You do it for so that your soul has a place in the world beyond your physical existence. I don't know. That's
Wow.
what it means to me.
That area
Yes.
right there that we were just talking about literally just moved when you said that.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. Wow. So, we always do this with me. This is how we're going to end this conversation.
Okay. You
I,
gotta pull it
I
up.
either do a card
Yes.
pull or I do a book. So we got a new book by
Yes.
Julia Cameron. It's called Transition. So give me a
Ooh.
page and this will be our closing thought.
79.
Okay. All right. Okay, so here is what she says. Today, I choose to cherish myself like a beloved child. I treat myself gently and with compassion, practicing alert attention. I find delight in the small treasures of the day. I allow meaningful moments to assume enhanced perspective. Counting these blessings, I enrich my impoverished heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
I received that.
You receive it. Me too.
Yes.
It's so funny, whenever we do these, right? Sometimes it's intuitively,
Yeah.
just messages come to us as long as, like you said, if we remain open
Yes.
and really let go of control. Well, Alisi, I just always enjoy whenever we're together. It is such medicine for me, and we have
Likewise.
these wonderful conversations. And
Always.
I learn so much, about your culture. And yeah, I feel so filled up, and you have me like buzzing right now in terms of things that I want to explore. But, thank you so much for helping us kick off season 2 as we delve deep into what transitions at this threshold mean. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to help support this interview series, make sure to tune in to the next episode and share it with others. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Radiant You, you as in the letter U, and sign up for my newsletter by visiting www.theradiantu.com. Again, that's theradiantu.com. Thanks everyone, and remember, dream big, dream bold, and take brave steps. I'll see you next time.